So this event is called New Capitalisms and Violence. We wanted to explore, me and a couple of cultural criminologists at Sociology, what all these isms, these different kinds of capitalisms that are circulating in texts and in media without further explanation. For example, communicative capitalism, surveillance capitalism, neoliberalism, anarcho-capitalism, and so on and so on. What these different kinds of capitalisms actually mean and how they relate to each other, but also how they produce or are constitutive of violence. And that is not coincidence, because both me and David Sausdal and Erik Hannerz from Sociology are researching contemporary violences in society through the market. As a society, we all the time talk about different harms and inequalities and actual direct violence, as well as structural violence and structural oppressions that have very bad effect on human beings and the way we live as humans. But we very seldom have comprehensive seminars where we meet the public and where we also talk in between academics about how do we use these terms and what kind of violence does actually a specific kind of economic system lead to. We have seen 4 different presentations. One about Financilized capitalism by Ester, Barinaga, which was fabulous and very concrete on how we live and what it means that we live in a debt and credit economy. Then we saw a presentation about effective capitalism by Joel Hietanen from Helsinki University. And what was fabulous about that was that we got to see how it feels and how it is as to be a human being in this financialized capitalism, and why we can't stop ourselves, why we keep on doing things that we maybe should not do, or we know that we shouldn't do them. And then we also saw James Fitchett, professor in Leicester, UK, talk about abandonment capitalism, a little bit more philosophically complex, which still also shows how we as perverted subjects can't say no to the forces of capitalism. But in the end, we got, again, a little bit more optimistic, just like Ester. Christina Janne from Aarhus University, who talked about that there are ways to organize certain kinds of economies that does not resemble this large, hegemonic, pervasive capitalism economic system that we usually speak about, but that there are actually ways to organize into small economic arrangements. But she took some what we would normally call dark examples, and that's the mafia and gangs in Italy and Denmark. Now we will have a panel with Christina Janne and Ester Barinaga, but also Peter Svensson, who will talk about racial capitalism. David Sausdal will talk about gig economies and gangsters, and Pasko Medikisic will talk about far-right ideology and effective capitalism.